Well, my guest on the show is someone who's always flying, but today we managed to literally catch him on the ground in our studio. I'm talking about, Vinay Dube here of Akasa. And, well, nice to meet you in person on ground. I've been told that you fly 20 days in a month.
There's a lot of flying involved.
There's a lot of flying involved.
Thankfully.
Okay. You've flown a lot of passengers during Kumbh. How many passengers did Akasa fly to Prayagraj directly and indirectly in and around Mahakumbh in that 1 month window?
Boy, Nikunj, I have not counted, but all I can tell you is that we at Akasa, and I think the airline industry, hope we have a Mahakumbh every month of every year. I mean, it was an amazing event for the country and the nation. It was fantastic for airlines. We added a lot of extra sections. And by the way, it's not just Prayagraj that saw an uptick, but it's, Varanasi, Lucknow, Ayodhya, all of UP. In fact, our Gorakhpur flights also, even though they're geographically far away, all of them saw this amazing uptick. And everybody you talk to has been to Mahakumbh. So it was nothing short of a miracle.
Okay. But just give me a sense so that, our team can flash it and I can relate to it, that how many Kumbh flights directly and indirectly were planned in that 40-day period? Just give me an extent.
Yeah, so 20 round trips a day, so 1,000.
1,000
something
flights
like that,
is what Akasa did in that 1 month.
Something like that.
An average ticket?
Average ticket was affordable. Let's leave it at that.
Okay, so what that did for the airline industry, not for just Akasa. I mean, what this Mahakumbh has done for the airline industry. Are we in for a bumper quarter for the airline industry because of Mahakumbh?
I think yes. So I think February for most airlines would have probably been even better than a December. And December is the peak of the peak months, for example, or May. So it was a spectacular February. But, as excited as we are in terms of what February and January has done as a result of Mahakumbh, obviously at Akasa, we're not a one-quarter airline, right? I mean, we're planning our airline for the next 3, 5, 8 years. And so as excited as we are, we're already moved on to, how the second quarter and the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And that's where our focus is on.
The airline industry globally is considered to be a brutal industry. It's a tough industry, too much of competition. Every 2-3 years, somebody goes up, somebody goes down, and very few stay up. But India, it's very different. Akasa is doing exceedingly well. SpiceJet has managed to bounce back. India has got an enviable number. Air India is limping back into normalcy. Why is the Indian aviation sector right now growing and flying?
Yeah. So let's separate the growth from the stability, because these are two very, the growth is very much a feature of India Inc. I mean, everything in India will grow with the economy, right? And so growth is a given in India, and we'll be growing for the next, 30 years. India is also in its nascent stage as far as aviation is concerned, and that's part of the reason why you have growth. Now, stability is altogether different. I think the stability that you're going to see over the next 5 to 7 years is just as a result of a maturing industry here in India, right? I think that, a lot of the ups and downs are a thing of the past. And if you look at, let's say, the US industry, they had 9 airlines that were profitable for an entire decade. So for the 10 years preceding COVID, there were 9 airlines that were profitable for 10 years in a row.
In US?
In the US.
Okay.
And because, a lot of the bankruptcies that we here have had in India are mirroring what happened in other parts of the world. And I think as you look at the maturity that you're going to see, I think we're going to have sort of this golden age of aviation stability in India here for the next 10 years. Okay. And that's very exciting to be part of.
So let's look at some numbers here. India's GDP growth 6%. You added a nominal GDP, that's another 5, that makes it 12. Can I say, because the airline industry is nascent, 15 to 18% CAGR growth for next 3 to 5 years is given?
I wouldn't say given, but an expectation of 15% plus or minus, I think is a very reasonable expectation in line with the economic growth and the nascency of the industry, absolutely.
And since you have a small base, can I add a couple of percentage points here and say for Akasa 25% plus is a probability?
I would say at least.
Okay.
Given our small base, at least. I mean, we grew 300% the previous financial year, over 50%. This financial year, you're going to see numbers like that for the next couple of years. So I would say at least that given our small base.
But if I could just throw in some numbers, and again, this is something which we know is in public domain, that you have 27 aircrafts right now.
Yes.
You ordered 100.
We've ordered another 199, almost 200 more.
Oh, I lost count after 100.
Correct.
So that's
correct.
So that's about 226 aircrafts coming in next 5 years?
Yes, well, we've got 27, so 199 coming in the next 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
How will that get added up every year? Is there a calendar you can share with us?
It's not a calendar, but I'll say a couple of things just to give you a sense that our expectation is that as we cross 2030, Akasa will be one of the 30 largest airlines in the world by aircraft count. Just to give you a picture,
in the world?
In the world.
Which is the largest airline in the world?
Today it's United.
How many
by aircraft? They've got
have?
over 1,000 aircraft.
Okay.
Right? So, look, we don't hope of getting there, but in the next 5 to 7 years, Akasa will be one of the 30 largest airlines in the world by aircraft count. Just to give you a sense of not just Akasa, but the excitement around aviation in India as a whole. So that gives you a sense of, the aircraft delivery. While I can't give you a year-by-year number, I can tell you that the growth is going to be pretty spectacular and is going to put us in the map in terms of global airline sizes.
For a market like India, which is still very sensitive to pricing, and the air travel is acceptable as long as it is affordable.
Correct.
What is the size of aircrafts that Indian markets can digest? Could it be 2,000? Could it be 2,500? What's that number at which you would say it's healthy for the industry and it is great for the passenger?
Yeah, so I think it's much more than that.
Okay.
Let me give you a sense that 5 years ago, China had 3,500 commercial aircraft,
Okay.
right? 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
5 or 6 years ago, the US had 7,500 commercial aircraft, right? And so for us, hovering, short of 1,000, so we have maybe 700-800. I think that number, given the geographical size of the country and the 1.4 billion population, there's no reason why we can't work our way up to 6,000-7,000 aircraft, which is what the US had, several years ago. So it will take some time. It's not in the next 3 to 5 years that we're going to see 6,000 or 7,000 aircraft. But as a country, for us to have 6,000 or 7,000 commercial aircraft over the course of the next 20 or 30 years is not out of the realm of possibility.
Okay, 20 years is a really, really long time.
Yeah.
Right. So let's
Sure.
make it 5. In next 5 years, how many aircrafts Indian industry
I think
can digest?
1,500.
1,500 aircrafts?
In the next 5 to 7 years.
The total aircraft?
Yes.
Okay, so 1,500
We've got
aircrafts.
800, we'll double easily.
Okay. And the markets can digest it?
Absolutely.
They say the airports are getting choked. They say that the waiting, if you land in Mumbai, you have to keep on circling it, right? They say in Delhi also the situation is pretty similar. Where will so many aircrafts go?
Yeah. So I want to do two things because I think sometimes we don't give ourselves as Indians enough credit. So in terms of circling, let me give you an interesting fact. If you look at the travel time between Atlanta and Washington, D.C. in the 1960s, with the state of the 1960s aircraft that were reasonably slow, that travel time was faster than it is in the 2020s. Okay? Just to give you a sense. And part of that is air traffic congestion. So I don't want us to think of India as some place that we are inept and we're the only country where aircrafts get on hold. I'm giving you a statistic in the US comparing 1960 with 2020 and the travel time it takes. So that's sort of point number one. Point number two is that we have built, I think, something like 70 airports in the last several years, and we're going to build another 100 in the next 7 to 10 years. So I think the government's focus on infrastructure is where the excitement lies. That gives us the ability to digest these aircraft, the 1,500 aircraft that I talked about. Very excited about Navi Mumbai, very excited about Jewar, excited about the improvements that are made in Hyderabad and Goa and Chennai and a multitude of other airports around India. I don't think there's going to be any issue in terms of where our aircraft are going to be parked or flown to.
Okay, fair point. Now, Akasa started with 0% market share because you've just got incubated, not even 5 years. If you will have 250 aircrafts in the course of next 5 to 7 years, assuming that we would have about 1,500 to 1,800 aircraft, so let's look at mathematics here. You're looking at you would have 15 to 20% market share in 5 years?
5 to 7? Yes. I think that's entirely possible.
5 to 7% for an airline which did not exist.
5 to 7 years with mid-double digit, 15% market share, sure. I think that's entirely possible. But I will tell you something. One is we're not focused on market share. Market share is sort of inevitable because of our small base and our aircraft order that is linked to the growth that India is seeing. So market share is an inevitability. I will tell you what we're focused on is the consumer experience. We're focused on, steady, reliable, predictable growth for us, our shareholders, and most importantly, the consumers. We take great pride in our on-time performance. We believe we're India's most on-time airline. Since the DGCA started, tracking our on-time performance, we believe that our consumer experience and the feedback that we're getting is second to none. I would hate for us to be put into a certain category of carriers. I would say if you compare our consumer experience to any airline in India, I would say we're right up there. And so those are the things that we take great pride in. Market share will just come over time.
Okay. I have a personal question. Can I ask you?
Please.
Will Akasa be flying from the old terminal or the new Adani terminal when both the airports will start?
Both.
Both.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely both.
How do you life's changing for the city of Mumbai after the new terminal takes over?
I think it'll make flying much easier and more accessible for a certain geographical area within Mumbai. We've done studies for 70% of Mumbai's population base approximately, and this is going back to census data that is a few years old in Mumbai, which is divided into various geographical locations. But for 70% of Mumbai's population, we estimate that the new airport is going to be as close or closer.
So would broadly you be moving 50% plus of your current flights and new flights to the new terminal?
No, there'll be no movement.
Okay.
Right? There'll be no movement. We've got about 27 daily departures at the existing airport. The new airport is just going to see additions on top of that. We're not going to be moving from one to the other, of course. Terminal 1 will be shut down for some period of time, and so there'll be some amount of capacity that will decrease between Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 at the current airport. But that's it. But otherwise, given the amount of planes we're getting, we don't need to reduce one to increase flying at the other. We've got plenty of aircraft to be parked in Navi Mumbai. We've got plenty of aircraft to be parked and flown in Jewar and many other airports around India. So it's not a movement at all.
In the aviation industry, the dynamics at play are perhaps energy prices. 1/3 of the total cost is energy. Do you see that changing as efficiency kicks in, as more and more AI kicks in? Do you see that this whole change of aviation turbine fuel as percentage of the total cost, can that come down dramatically? Because that could be a game changer.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And the reason it's hard to say is because obviously, when Brent is at $40 a barrel versus $100 a barrel, that's a massive difference in terms of percentage of fuel costs relative to other costs. So it's hard to say. I will say though that we are building efficiency into every other aspect of the airline, and that certainly translates into ticket prices over time. I mean, this is one of the few prices across the world that if you look at a 20 or 30-year CAGR, that we are below inflation. So we're very, very affordable when it comes to ticket prices as a whole. I know at times people may not feel that. And you look at the peak of peaks, so we're talking about Mahakumbh, and certainly, sometimes there are eye-popping fares, but overall, I would say we are, an industry that has been below inflation due to the efficiency you talked about. And that's something that will continue.
I'm tempted to go back to that Mahakumbh number because I've not got a number from you. Can I say about $1 billion of revenue came for the airline industry because of Mahakumbh directly, indirectly?
Boy, an industry number is not something that I can speak of because I can't speak on behalf of the others, and we have not calculated a Mahakumbh number. I mean, look, it's a big number, but I will tell you that as you look at, because it was important for us to understand, what aspect of our future is.
When did you start planning for Mahakumbh? As in,
a year ago.
Oh, a year ago you
saw
this
happen.
I
mean, Mahakumbh, we knew Mahakumbh was coming a year ago.
So it's 1 year of planning.
Absolutely.
So that you were able to, what is the other event you're planning now?
There's no event like Mahakumbh, but I will tell you that every time there's an announcement of a special event, first thing we want to do as good corporate citizens is make sure there's enough capacity at that particular event. This is not something that we're looking from the perspective of how we can make money, but from the perspective of there should be enough capacity to serve the people of the nation. All right, and so we start planning well in advance. There's Diwali planning. There will be summer school holidays planning to areas. We plan around between domestic and international. When you have flows to the Middle East, when you have flows domestically that are stronger, and we move our aircraft around.
They move accordingly.
Absolutely, and it's primarily to ensure there's enough capacity. So the peak periods for the Middle East, for example, are July, August, September. Right, that's not the peak for the domestic season.
You get permissions. You are able to get the landing spots. All that happens seamlessly. With the
we do
DGCA?
that. We do that within our capacity and traffic right allocation.
Okay. What about Ayodhya? I mean, you were present in Ayodhya, but we understand that the excitement which was there about a year ago clearly seems to be dying away. What's happening to this whole Ayodhya travel route for airlines and for Akasa?
Yeah, look, I think that most new places, most new airports go through this sort of up, down, a bit of a U curve where it goes up, then comes down, and then start going up. My view is Ayodhya is a phenomena that is going to be with us for the foreseeable future, 100, 200, 500 years. I think 300-400 years from now, people are going to be talking about this in the way we talk about other historical 300-400-year-old monuments today. If there is a lull we're seeing, I would like to classify that as a lull and not a change, long-term change in patterns.
How many flights do you have?
We've got from 2 destinations. We serve Ayodhya.
And you plan to continue even if there is little bit of drop in passenger?
We will, but we will plan accordingly. In that, if we have to pull down a few days of weeks, which is not something we're planning today, it's not a problem. But I see it as a lull. It's not something that is a permanency in terms of traffic flows. No, I think people will want to go there for a long time to come.
What are the 3 trends which you see in India? One is business travel, the trunk routes. I'm just, for the audience here, trunk routes are Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, maybe Bangalore, Delhi. These are trunk routes. I mean, these are business travelers, they travel.
Yeah.
But there are some trends which are changing, smaller towns, exotic
Correct.
destinations. What are the 3 trends where you are currently investing in, where you would like to adopt as an early mover?
Yeah. So I'll give you 2 principal ones as opposed to 3. First is you'll see a lot of flying from the 6 metros to the non-metro cities, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. There's a lot of traffic there. And that movement is coming as India's GDP per capita goes up. People that previously could not afford airfare are now affording airfare. And this goes back to my point in terms of the fact that airfare is something that has been for 20, 30 years below inflation, and I see it for the foreseeable future as well, not necessarily even keeping pace with inflation, right? And so that's going to make airfare a lot more affordable today for people that historically have been taking trains from the metro cities to the non-metros. And the second thing is international travel. I think as the middle class becomes more affluent, I think you're going to start seeing people travel to places where you and I, when we were, let's say, in our 20s, did not dream of flying. And I think that spirit of adventure is going to take people to, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, Indonesia, all over the place. Places where, like I said, we didn't have access to when we were in our 20s and 30s. And the younger population demographics is going to push people towards these kind of experiences. I mean, you'll recall, you're a lot younger than me, so you may not recall, Nikunj, but when in the 80s when you had made it, or in the 70s when you had made it, you maybe
I was not born, so that time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then let me stick to my age then. I won't embarrass you, but in the 70s, when you made it, you went to Singapore.
Okay.
After that, when you made it, you went to maybe London. Then after that, when you made it, you went to maybe Switzerland. Today, before you've made it,
you go to Kumbh.
You go to Kumbh, but you also go to Vietnam, or you go to Singapore, or Malaysia, or Phuket, or Bangkok, or or other places.
You made it. So where are you planning to go next now?
You know, I'm planning to go from here to the office. I have a lot of work to do. I believe in work-life balance, but you know, with a young company, it's not just me, but you need, you know, dedication from 4,500 employees that we have today that I'm extremely proud of.
How many employees do you have now? Just
about 4,500.
Okay, and when will that number become 10?
You know, over a matter of time, I think in the next 3-4 years. I have not calculated, so I may be wrong by 1 or 2 years. But look, when you get planes, you need people, right? In our industry, as planes come in, you need people. I will tell you that's one of the most fulfilling aspects of building a business is not just the employment, but seeing people's careers grow. Because aviation is one industry where 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people cannot run it. You need 4,500 plus people to actually do a good job and provide the on-time performance that we're so proud of.
सब जानना चाहते हैं भाई, Akasa, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Rare Enterprise, that name is associated. How's that association going? When will you turn profitable? Do you need more capital? Everybody wants to know these fill in the blank questions. Whisper numbers about Akasa.
Yeah, first, every time we talk about, RJ, my face lights up. I have this, amazing sense of love and gratitude for him, as I think, millions of people all over the world do, right? And so that's something that, that should be said every time his name is mentioned. Look, in terms of more and that relationship is going, amazingly well. If you look at, the family today and Rekha ji as the matriarch. Yes, of course. Absolutely.
She talks business with you?
She doesn't talk business with me in the way you would imagine business is conducted with the boardroom. But I'll tell you, she knows everything.
She knows everything.
Yeah, she knows everything. So I would never, underestimate her capabilities and her capacity. But just the most, amazing relationship that we have with them. Couldn't be happier. In terms of additional capital, look, we've just signed, agreements with 3 marquee investors, in terms of, Premji Capital, Ranjan Pai, Clay Pond, that is, and 361. Just amazing companies. We're so happy that they have chosen to sign an agreement with us. This is subject to regulatory approval. And so that was your second question in terms of, additional set of funds.
You have enough money in the bank?
We have enough money in the bank. Look, our view has always been there are 2 cardinal sins airlines have made historically. We may suffer from something else, but we're not going to suffer from these 2 cardinal sins. First one is a poor cost structure, which we're not going to suffer from. The second one is to be undercapitalized, which we're not going to suffer from. Like I said, there may be something else that may hit us, hopefully not, but not these 2 elements. We will have India's most competitive cost structure, and we will continue to be well capitalized. So this is, in our future, and we're building a profitable future. We're well on the path to profitability that we chalked out for ourselves, when we were drawing the initial business plan.
The 2 airline companies are listed, SpiceJet, and then there is Indigo. So we get a sense about what the market share is, what the competition is, what the margins are, and what the seat per revenue, right? That's what you calculate.
Revenue per available seat kilometer.
So if I have to use Indigo in all the benchmarks,
right.
Are you nearing there? Are you almost there if you have to compare your numbers?
Yeah, we're almost there in terms of unit revenues, because people have certainly appreciated the consumer experience and the reliability of Akasa. As you know, we've got, our seats have an extra inch of padding, so, it's butt friendly. We've got, best in class legroom, brand new aircraft. I think our flight attendant and our airport experience is second to none. Our food is fantastic. And so as a result of that, the revenue side of the business is a lot closer.
I still have to pay more if I am flying more than 15 kgs.
Well, that's a factor of India, but I would say, compare us to global airfares. Whenever you think about airfares and you want to fly from Mumbai to Delhi and you're getting a ticket for 6,000 and you have to compare us to what it takes in other parts of the world to fly 1,000, 1,100 kilometers, right? But because of consumers' sort of appreciation of what Akasa brings, the revenue side, I think is growing nicely because people have responded to the reliability and the empathy and the service excellence that Akasa brings. Look, on the cost side, we just need a little more scale. We're well on our way to cost leadership here in India, but at 27 aircraft today, I think it'll take a little more to get to cost leadership, and we're fine with that.
If you have to go to a destination Akasa doesn't fly, will it be Air India, would it be Indigo, would it be SpiceJet for you? Akasa doesn't go there.
Myself?
Yeah.
Look, I think for most people, schedule comes first.
Okay.
So it's not a choice of one, versus the other. It's schedule comes first, and I fly, multiple times a year to places where Akasa does not fly.
So I will not be surprised if I see non-Akasa flight.
Yeah,
on board.
please
That's
don't be
all right.
surprised. No, that's perfectly fine.
And you write notes that what is right and what is wrong they do?
Absolutely, because our view is that we should learn from the good and bad that other people do. We shamelessly copy. If someone else is doing something well, we absolutely want to copy and emulate that. And we have so far, and we'll continue to do so.
तो एक बात बताइए जहाँ आपने किसी की नकल करी है और जहाँ किसी को अक्ल लगा के आपकी नकल करनी चाहिए.
So I can talk about the first. The second one, look, I'll leave it to others. But from a business model, look, we're all copying. All of us, ourselves, people like Ryanair, Indigo, are all copying the original Southwest business model.
That is
single
efficient.
aircraft type, a single engine type, focus on short turnarounds, focus on using the asset and flying or sweating the asset as they talk about. I mean, these are fundamental elements that we have copied. We don't have the intelligence to be able to invent something like that. Hopefully, we've got the humility to be able to copy something like that. So that's one example, but there are many others.
And before we wrap, just, airline is one sector where you talk about it, you just discuss 10 things and you say, oh, I wish I had another time for 2 more.
Yeah.
My final question is, in an average aircraft in India, an average Boeing aircraft, how many hours does it fly? And, let's say at 12 a.m. it is out of the hangar.
Yeah.
What is the duty time like? How many hours does it fly? How does it work?
Yeah, so I'd say you have aircraft, and I'll separate flying time from actual usage, because when aircraft is taxiing out and taxiing in, that's usage as well. And technically we measure both. But in terms of the usage of the aircraft, which includes taxi time, look, these go from anywhere from 11 to 14 hours for a narrow body, right? For
Which
a
is
narrow
what we have
body
in
aircraft.
India.
Well, we've got narrow body and wide body.
Okay.
We got the single aisle and the double aisles.
Okay.
The double aisles tend to fly more.
Okay.
The double aisles can get to 16 plus, just because they fly longer, right? A round trip to London and back, a round trip to New York and back, and you're using the asset a lot more. So you have a fewer number of flights per day, but you use the aircraft a lot more. So for a narrow body, 11 to 14 hours of usage, not flying time, but usage from gate to gate. And a wide body, a double aisle aircraft, 18 plus hours is not unreasonable.
Well, fantastic to have you on Etina. We've discussed so much. Started the Akasa. You've told me about aircrafts. Congratulations, what a success story. And I just learned it that an aircraft can actually be flying for 16 hours a day. That's incredible. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
That's
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.